A growing scandal involving Prince Harry and his last remaining genuine charity project, the Invictus Games. But is it really a charity project at all?
Australia has done a U-turn. They had previously cut funding for the Invictus Games, but now veteran BACKLASH has forced them to bring it back.
Harry's heartbreak as the showbiz elite dump the Sussexes.
The failure of As Ever is simply impossible to ignore, and more people are picking up on this.
I think that will be the beginning of the end for Meghan as a public figure, because this is a man that she's abandoned. Just awful. It will be shame on you, Meghan.
Invictus Games, 4 wounded warriors, which sounds like the Wounded Warrior Games. And people think, oh, this must be great. And a lot of people are unclear how to read a tax return or to check stats. And so I think it was just very easy to say, oh, the Invictus Games, it's great. It does all this. And then, you know, you start looking into it and you're like, hey, what the heck is going on here? You know, those 535 competitors had to pay their own way. They had to pay their own housing for the games. They had to pay for their own equipment.
The controversy surrounding the Invictus Games has grown louder as critics question the contrast between the sacrifices of the competitors and the spending surrounding the event. Reports claim that some wounded veterans covered their own travel costs, accommodation, and equipment, while high-profile attendees enjoyed premium arrangements. That contrast has become the center of the anger, especially among those who believe the focus should remain entirely on the servicemen and women the event was created to support. By the end of this story, the question becomes not just about money, but about trust, loyalty, and why even members of Prince Harry's own family
really was the fact, again, that this is, I think, where Harry is struggling. I think he felt that his presence just turning up, and this has been the problem almost now with Invictus for the last few years, that, you know, Markle turning up in Canada, rushing in at the last minute saying, oh, you know, I've been busy doing packed lunches. It's just focus about them. You know, I think people are fed up with the way that it's looking in Invictus. And I know this talking to some senior people there, you know, they're just thinking, well, where has this gone wrong? Saying they'd like His Majesty the King, the Royals, etc., Invictus, Birmingham. And recently they put out something about some sponsor and all of that, you know, because it's flagging, let's be honest. Invictus Birmingham, you know, I wish them all the best, I genuinely do, but, you know, this country right now, we're just running out of money at the rate of knots. And it's all down to the government, whichever way you want to say it, it's down to bad spending and bad chancellorship, which is Rachel Reeves.
Are reportedly choosing not to appear at key moments. The first major issue is the petition that has placed him under intense pressure. A petition has begun circulating with a single demand: remove Prince Harry from the Invictus Games. Not restructure it, not review it, but completely remove him from the organisation. Supporters of the petition insist that their frustration is not directed at the veterans themselves. Instead, they claim they are speaking out because they feel the veterans deserve better protection and transparency. That is what makes the situation more damaging. According to claims from a source described as being familiar with Invictus, senior members of the royal family have reportedly decided their position regarding the upcoming Birmingham launch. The reported decision is a complete absence of senior royal representation. No King, no William, no Catherine. For an organisation that has long been viewed as one of Harry's strongest achievements.
The $63 million Invictus Games spend into the mainstream media. So Paula Frolic is going to be here to blow the whistle on all of this today, but I just want to start by revealing some of the key lines from Paula's brand new and really jaw-dropping reporting this week. And of course, she's been very careful because we know how litigious Prince Harry can be, but this is really extraordinary stuff. So Paula reports, the most recent games held in Vancouver and Whistler in February 2025 brought together 543 wounded military veterans from 23 countries. The total cost 63.2 million Canadian, or approximately $118,352 per competitor. For comparison, the US Warrior Games, a similar competition for wounded American service members, runs on roughly $2 million a year. Germany's Invictus-style competition costs about $200,000 and involves half as many participants. The public's taxes footed a portion of the bill.
This reported distance has raised questions. Even many critics of Harry have previously acknowledged that the creation of Invictus was a meaningful project that brought attention to wounded servicemen and women around the world. But now, according to these claims, the very institution that helped shape his public image is facing scrutiny from all directions. So what information is causing this reaction? Critics say the answers can be found in the financial records. The most recent, Invictus Games in Vancouver and Whistler, reportedly brought together 543 wounded service members from 23 countries. On the surface, it represented exactly what the organization was created to do: international competition, recovery, teamwork, and support. But the reported cost attached to the event.
According to tax returns on file, the public picked up half the tab for Vancouver, with the Canadian federal government contributing $15 million through the Veterans Affairs Canada and the province of British Columbia contributing another $15 million through its Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Sport. The remaining funds came from approximately 40 corporate partners and about $2.6 million in individual donations. Crucially, that public money didn't flow directly to the Games. It was routed through the Vancouver Whistler Games Corporation, which then paid a licensing fee to the Invictus Games Foundation, the British charity that owns and licenses the Games brand. The amount of that licensing fee was oddly redacted. I sense a cover-up. The Invictus Games Foundation, the British charity at the centre of the operation, recently filed its 2024 annual accounts with the UK Charity Commission after a 2-year grace period. The numbers, Paula reports, raised red flags. In 2024, the foundation cut its direct grants to veteran organisations by 63%, from £534,973 to just £200,328. The same year that foundation income rose 41%, a new 6-figure executive role was added, and cash reserves grew to $2.3 million.
Has become the focus of debate. The figure being discussed is around $63.2 million, which works out to approximately $118,000 per competitor. That number immediately created comparisons. The American Warrior Games, another event involving wounded service members competing in adaptive sports, reportedly operates on a much smaller annual budget. Germany has also hosted similar events at a fraction of the cost. So the question many critics are asking is simple: why is there such a dramatic difference in spending for events with similar goals?
The foundation's highest paid staff are earned between £120,000 and £130,000 above typical UK charity sector norms. Other interesting things of note: legal fees jumped from £45,000 to £155,000 with no explanation given. Deferred income ballooned fourfold from £431,000 to £1.799 million. An American for-profit company called June's LLC, with no description of purpose, received nearly £30,000 in 2023 and nothing in 2024. And the same filing contains 2 different company registration numbers, one on the cover page, another on the balance sheet. The foundation publicly claims that 92% of every pound spent goes towards charitable activities, a figure that technically falls within UK Charity Commission guidelines. But the term charitable activities includes the cost of running the Games themselves, not direct grants or services to veterans.
The controversy deepens when examining where the funding came from. Reports state that a significant portion of the money came from public sources, including contributions from the Canadian federal government and British Columbia. However, critics argue that the money did not move directly into the Games themselves. Instead, it reportedly passed through another organisation, which then paid licensing fees to the British charity connected with the Invictus name. The size of that licensing fee has become another point of debate, with critics highlighting that some details were not publicly visible. And once people began looking closer, more questions appeared. When the Invictus Foundation reportedly released its 2024 accounts after delays, critics pointed to several figures they considered concerning. One of the biggest claims involved direct grants to veterans' organisations. According to reports, those grants dropped significantly, falling from more than £500,000 to roughly £200,000. At the same time, critics noted that the foundation's overall income reportedly increased, a new executive position with a substantial salary appeared, and cash reserves reportedly grew beyond £2 million. The criticism was based on the perception that money intended for veterans was decreasing, while organisational costs were increasing. Additional figures also drew attention. Legal expenses reportedly rose from around £45,000 to £155,000. Another payment reportedly went to an American for-profit company that critics questioned because of limited public explanation about its role. Then came another detail that fueled online discussion. Reports claiming that the accounts contained two different company registration numbers, one appearing on the cover and another appearing elsewhere in the filing. For critics, that became symbolic of broader concerns about management and transparency. The foundation has reportedly defended its operations by stating that the majority of spending goes toward charitable activities. But critics argue that the phrase charitable activities can include many expenses connected to running the games, including production, travel, accommodation, and logistics. Their argument is that there is a difference between funding an event and directly supporting an individual veteran who needs practical assistance. That distinction has become the emotional center of the debate, because at the heart of the criticism are the competitors themselves, the wounded veterans who represent the reason the organization exists. Reports claiming that some participants paid their own travel, hotel, or equipment expenses have sparked anger among supporters who believe those athletes should be the first priority. The image many people are reacting to is powerful. A veteran who sacrificed years of service struggling with costs, while those connected to the event appear to have access to luxury arrangements. Critics have also questioned reports about Harry and Meghan's travel, accommodations, and public appearances, including claims about expensive clothing choices associated with Meghan's appearances. Supporters of the couple dispute many criticisms and argue that public-facing roles require certain arrangements, but the debate continues. One comment circulating online summarized the frustration. People contribute because they want to support the men and women who served, not because they want to finance luxury appearances. And that feeling, the belief that the mission has become disconnected from the people it was created for, is exactly what continues to drive the petition and the growing backlash. The controversy surrounding the Invictus Games continued to grow as critics focused on what they described as a troubling contrast between the purpose of the event and what happened during certain moments. One of the examples frequently discussed involved seating arrangements during competition, where some observers claimed one team appeared to rely on adaptive equipment while another did not need the same assistance. After the match ended, reports claimed the American players simply stood up and left the area, a moment that quickly became a subject of online debate. Supporters of the event responded by pointing out that not every injury or struggle can be seen. Many veterans deal with invisible wounds, including psychological challenges and the long-term effects of service. Those concerns are genuine, and many people argue that adaptive sport should always recognize both visible and invisible sacrifices. But critics raised a different question. When the competition is based on physical performance, how do organizers guarantee that every participant is truly competing under comparable conditions? That question became one of the most discussed issues because the image stayed with people. Once viewers began debating fairness, the conversation moved beyond a single competition and toward the overall presentation of the games. Then came another detail that critics highlighted: the atmosphere inside the venues. Reports claimed that some events had noticeably quiet stands, with volunteers appearing to outnumber spectators. Some observers questioned whether the audience size reflected genuine public enthusiasm, or whether the events were being carefully managed for television and official appearances. The criticism became sharper because of claims that Harry and Meghan's appearances were brief, According to some reports, the couple arrived, greeted supporters, appeared for cameras, shared a public moment, and left after around 10 minutes. For supporters, those appearances represented encouragement and visibility for the athletes. For critics, they raised concerns about whether the focus was shifting from the competitors to the public image surrounding the event. And the questions did not stop with spectators or veterans. A much larger issue emerged when critics began examining government involvement and international support. One of the countries often associated with the early spirit of the Games is Australia, a nation with a strong military connection and a history of supporting veterans. Reports claimed Australia temporarily stepped back from funding discussions, creating a difficult moment because it happened around the same period Harry and Meghan were reportedly seeking renewed enthusiasm and support. The situation became a public relations challenge. The idea of traveling internationally to encourage greater backing, only to face uncertainty from a major partner, created uncomfortable headlines. Later reports suggested the funding situation changed again, with support potentially returning. But critics argued the bigger issue was not only the final outcome, it was the fact that questions were raised at all. Their argument was that governments do not usually reconsider support for veteran initiatives without serious discussion. When a nation known for supporting service members begins asking whether a program remains sustainable or effective, critics say it becomes more than a simple image problem. It becomes a question about confidence. And according to critics, that same uncertainty began appearing among corporate sponsors. They pointed to reports that several companies did not renew partnerships. The argument was that corporations were not distancing themselves from veterans, but from the controversy surrounding the organization's leadership and public reputation. One company frequently mentioned in these discussions was Boeing, a major aerospace and defense company with long-standing connections to military aviation. Critics viewed the reported absence of continued involvement as significant because of the company's relationship with defense communities. The sponsor situation also became part of the broader debate around future games. Vancouver reportedly had dozens of corporate partners, while Birmingham faced a different environment with fewer publicly identified sponsors despite the event approaching. Critics questioned why private companies appeared hesitant to attach their names to an organization that was originally built around such a positive mission. That led to a deeper concern. If businesses that normally support military-related causes are cautious, what does that say about the public perception of the brand? Some reports claimed that professionals considered roles connected to the Birmingham team, but became hesitant after learning they would be working under the Invictus name. Whether every individual claim is accurate or not, the discussion itself revealed something important. Reputation can affect an organization long before official numbers show a decline. The criticism then expanded beyond Invictus and into Harry's wider charitable involvement. Opponents began pointing to a pattern they believed existed across several projects connected to him. One example often discussed is Centrebale, the charity Harry helped establish in memory of his mother. The organization later experienced public disputes involving leadership, disagreements, and changes within its structure. Those events created headlines and raised questions about governance. Another example frequently mentioned is African Parks, a conservation organization where Harry had been involved. The group faced controversy after allegations concerning human rights issues connected to operations in Africa. Critics questioned Harry's response and argued that the situation created another difficult moment involving an organization associated with him. Supporters of Harry have argued that involvement with large organizations naturally comes with complicated challenges, especially when they operate internationally. They point out that public figures often become connected to controversies they do not personally control, but critics focus on what they see as a repeating cycle. A major project launches with strong attention, then internal disputes, leadership changes, or public criticism follow. For them, the concern is not one single event, but the accumulation of controversies over time. And that is where the discussion turns to recognition and reputation itself. Because even achievements that once seemed unquestionable are now being examined through a different lens. The question being asked is no longer only about what was created, but whether the structures behind it can survive scrutiny, criticism, and public pressure. The Invictus Games were built around honoring wounded servicemen and women. That mission remains the central point for many supporters. But as the debate continues, critics argue that any organization carrying such a powerful purpose must be prepared to answer difficult questions about money, leadership, transparency, and priorities. And that is why even the recognition surrounding Harry's biggest projects has started to become part of the conversation. The debate reached another level when Harry's public recognition itself became part of the controversy. Reports that he received the Pat Tillman Award, an honor named after an American football player who left his professional career behind to serve in the military and later died during combat operations, immediately triggered a wave of criticism. Many people questioned whether Harry's achievements belonged in the same conversation as someone whose legacy was built around personal sacrifice and military service. The argument was not simply about the award itself, but about what the award represented. Critics claimed that the symbolism felt uncomfortable. They argued that Pat Tillman's story was about stepping away from fame and comfort to serve, while they believed Harry's current public life centered around appearances, media attention, and high-profile events. Supporters of Harry pushed back, pointing out that he served in the British military and has spent years involved in veterans' causes. They argue that his work with wounded service members and the creation of the Invictus Games represent a meaningful contribution. But the criticism continued because of a larger perception problem. The accusation from some critics was not necessarily that Harry had failed at every responsibility. Instead, they claimed the issue was that he was becoming more associated with the image of charity than the daily reality of running it. They described a pattern where Harry appears, gives speeches, participates in ceremonies, and receives recognition, while others handle the difficult operational work behind the scenes. Whether that criticism is fair or not, it became one of the biggest questions surrounding his role. And according to commentary surrounding the situation, that is exactly where the royal family's reported concerns come in. The claim is that members of the Royal Foundation want complete transparency. They want every financial figure explained, every decision accounted for, and every part of the organization's structure clearly documented. The reported message is simple: open the books, show the details, and prove that everything is being handled properly. Some commentators suggest that the reason senior royals are staying away from Birmingham is not just personal distance, but protection of the institution itself. The argument is that the monarchy cannot become connected to financial controversies, organizational disputes, or reputational problems involving a project it does not directly control. In that view, refusing to appear is not simply refusing an invitation, it is creating separation. But the controversy does not stop with Harry, because while questions continue around his charity work, critics say Meghan's own brand image has faced its own challenges. The discussion often returns to the couple's visit to Australia, where Meghan reportedly visited Bondi Beach, a location connected to a major tragedy, and also met people during hospital visits. For many supporters, those moments were seen as compassionate public appearances. Meeting victims, showing support, and acknowledging difficult moments are common parts of public service. However, critics focused on what happened afterward. They claimed that clothing worn during those appearances later became associated with products available online. The criticism was that moments of grief and public emotion became connected with fashion and branding. Some critics used harsh language to describe what they saw as the problem, arguing that the timing created the impression of turning meaningful moments into marketing opportunities. That accusation became especially powerful because it touched on a broader debate about celebrity culture. Where does public service end and personal branding begin? And once that question entered the conversation, attention turned toward Meghan's lifestyle brand. The brand had been promoted as a platform connected to cooking, home, wellness, and personal style. But critics argued that the public response had been underwhelming. claiming that product launches became smaller and less ambitious over time. Some online discussions focused on reported inventory issues and questioned whether demand matched expectations. The latest products became another talking point, especially the candle collection. Critics mocked the idea that a luxury candle line had become the centerpiece of the brand, arguing that the products represented a shift away from the larger vision originally presented. The pricing also became part of the debate, with critics questioning whether the products were accessible or justified. Some reports claimed individual candles were priced around $64, while sets could cost several $100s. Supporters of luxury brands responded that premium pricing is common in that market, but critics argued that the products felt disconnected from ordinary consumers. The conversation became even more personal when people noticed that some product names and details were connected to Meghan's children. The candles reportedly included references linked to family dates and meanings. To supporters, that could be seen as sentimental branding and a personal touch. To critics, it raised uncomfortable questions about whether family identity was being used as a commercial strategy. That became another example of the larger argument surrounding Meghan, whether she was building a meaningful brand or simply attaching personal moments to products. Another incident that gained attention involved a gift box reportedly sent to an online supporter. Critics claimed that the recipient had previously posted negative comments about William and Catherine, which created another round of debate. The question became why a public figure would send a personal gesture to someone who appeared hostile toward other members of the royal family. Supporters argued that public figures cannot always control who receives gifts or what people say online, but critics viewed it as another symbol of the division that has surrounded the Sussexes' relationship with the rest of the royal family. And this is where Harry's position becomes complicated. According to some commentary, Harry remains deeply connected to the Invictus mission. People involved with the organization may still respect his original vision and believe his involvement matters. The argument is that the charity itself was never the problem. Instead, critics claim that the controversy grew when the event became connected with celebrity media attention and personal branding. The theory being discussed is that Harry faces a difficult choice: continue defending the partnership and public image around him, or create distance if he believes it is harming the mission. Some critics frame the situation as a personal conflict, suggesting that Harry may be unwilling to acknowledge that his current approach is damaging the very cause he created. Others reject that idea completely and argue that the criticism is exaggerated and driven by hostility towards the couple. But one question continues to appear in discussions: can Invictus survive if the public conversation remains focused more on Harry and Meghan than on the veterans? That is the challenge, because organizations built around service depend on trust. They depend on people believing that the mission comes before personalities. And as speculation grows, another question emerges about future royal involvement. Some observers wonder whether members of the wider royal family, including figures connected to the extended family, would feel comfortable participating while Harry remains at the center of controversy. The concern is that any appearance could become a distraction from the veterans themselves. Meanwhile, there are also claims that people working inside the organization are trying to simply get through the Birmingham Games before addressing larger issues. The suggestion is that some individuals genuinely care about the competitors and want the event delivered successfully, but may have concerns they are not publicly sharing. If true, that would create a difficult situation. People trying to protect the mission while privately worrying about the direction of the organization. And that brings everything back to the original question: where does Harry stand now? The petition that started the controversy is no longer the only pressure point. Critics point to sponsors reconsidering involvement, governments questioning funding, and royal family members keeping their distance. At the same time, taxpayers are reportedly becoming part of the conversation because public funding has become a major issue. The argument from critics is that private companies appear hesitant while public money continues supporting the event. The biggest challenge for Harry, according to this view, is that the solution may require a decision he does not want to make. creating enough distance from the controversy surrounding his personal brand and focusing entirely on rebuilding trust in the organization. That would require difficult conversations, difficult choices, and possibly admitting that something about the current approach is not working. The next major test is Birmingham. Without senior royal support, without the same level of sponsorship confidence, and with public attention focused heavily on controversy, Harry is expected to face the moment largely on his own, because if he does not appear, critics say it will raise even more questions. But if he does appear, the question becomes whether he can shift the attention back where it belongs, the veterans. So the final question is not simply whether Harry walks into Birmingham. The real question is whether there is still an organization waiting for him when he arrives. If you want to see what happens next and where the money trail reportedly leads, check out the 2 videos on screen now. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more updates and stories like this.